But the American people can breathe a sigh of relief. There will be no government shutdown.
It was the breakthrough many lawmakers had been hoping for. And yet, in keeping the government running, as the headline says, they still failed millions of children. Congress averted a shutdown, but not a childcare cliff. Quote, on Saturday, billions of dollars in emergency childcare funding approved during the coronavirus pandemic expired due to government inaction, a nightmare scenario that providers, lawmakers, and analysts have been warning about for months.
The Century Foundation, a progressive think tank, estimates the looming childcare cliff could result in the closure of 70,000 childcare programs, and more than 3.2 million children could lose their spot, costing families $9 billion in lost wages.
In mid-September, members of Congress introduced the Child Care Stabilization Act. It was a last-ditch effort to avoid catastrophe, but the Republican-led House has not been supporting the bill, and so the crisis has begun.
The cost of child care has increased 220% in the last 3 decades, far outpacing inflation. The average cost a year is now more than $10,000 per child. For many Americans, these emergency funds have become essential.
How essential? Well, consider this. Thanks to the safety net spending that began after the pandemic hit, the census found that government assistance lifted 45.4 million people out of poverty in 2021, and child poverty fell to a record low of 5.2% in 2021. But last year, due to the expiration of the boosted child care tax credit, a credit that congressional Republicans and Democratic Senator Joe Manchin opposed, U.S. child poverty rate more than doubled in 2022 thanks to Manchin and GOP. So the expiration of child care assistance is going to compound the damage. And it's damage not just to families, but also to countless small businesses. Here's Washington Post reporter Abba Batare.
We saw a record $24 billion in federal funds flow into the childcare industry during the pandemic, and that's been helping thousands and thousands of childcare centers stay afloat. Many of these are really small family businesses that are run by, a handful of women typically, and they're really bare bones operations. They have very small profit margins, and they're just not equipped to take any sort of blow. So having funding run out means that a lot of them are at risk of closing all of a sudden. The Century Foundation estimates that as many as 70,000 childcare centers could close as a result of this, which is about 1 in 3 of the country's daycares and childcare centers, preschools. We're already starting to see some of that happen. The federal funding has been rolling off gradually. The last of it is running out at the end of this month, but we're already seeing many centers starting to struggle.
Did you catch that? 70,000 daycare centers are expected to close, 1 out of every 3 daycare centers in the United States. And all because Republicans, who claim to be the party of small business and of family values, hate the idea of government spending. Of course, if the government is going to spend not just billions of dollars, but hundreds of billions of dollars on already wealthy companies and businesses that build weapons and weaponry for our military, have at it. As the Republicans say, the Pentagon should be spending even more. It's about our national security, says the GOP. But when it comes to a family's personal financial security or the health of children who have already been born, the GOP says, forget about it. You're on your own. I say already born because, as we know, Republicans claim to be the guardians of life inside the womb. Every life is precious, says the GOP, even if it's a life created by incest or rape. But once that life comes out of the womb, families do not need government assistance or help, says Republicans. It's why many of us refer to the Republican Party not as the pro-life party, but as the pro-birth party. Every life must be born, according to the GOP, but after birth, you better not be looking for the government for any help, safety nets or protections or anything of that matter. The good news in all of this is that polls show a growing number of voters are taking notice. Helping people pay for childcare has a clear majority of U.S. voter support. Providing free meals for children in pre-K has strong majority support. And yes, letting women make their own decisions on what's best for them and their families also has strong support. And even Fox News' Sean Hannity, yes, Sean Hannity, says Republicans have gone too far in trying to roll back women's access to reproductive health services.
I consider myself pro-life. I believe in the sanctity of life, but I think politically that Republicans have got to say, as Bill Clinton once said, I never thought I'd quote him, rare, legal, and I'd add the word very early in a pregnancy. That seems to be politically where the country is. Maybe I'm wrong. But we'll see. That vote in Ohio was pretty sobering.
Hannity is referring to an Ohio ballot measure this year on abortion access. The results in a Republican-leaning state gave Democrats a clear victory.
Ohio, we did it! We did it!
In Republican-led Ohio, a resounding victory for abortion rights supporters.
The supporters of Issue 1 made the ultimate tactical error, and they have unleashed a movement that I promise you is not going away tomorrow.
Voters there rejected a Republican-backed measure that would have made it more difficult to change the state constitution to include abortion protections.
But I think this proves that when voters look at the issues and when the legislature and Republicans overstep, Ohioans will push back.
Sean Hannity and his guests acknowledged the pushback. It has been more than a year and a half since the U.S. Supreme Court tore down Roe v. Wade, the case legalizing abortion. And in every state vote since then related to abortion, voters have overwhelmingly rejected Republican efforts to further restrict women's reproductive rights.
Saw the vote in Ohio, and I will tell you that if you look at Doug Mastriano and Tudor, even your race, I would argue that people that have very restrictive views on abortion, unlike, say, Mississippi has 15 weeks, that was the Dobbs decision, that anything less than that, the fear among many conservatives is this will chase away many suburban voters.
And in fact, polls show it already has. Suburban voters, especially women, keep turning away from the GOP. And the trend with suburban and independent voters has alarmed Republican strategists and analysts. But countless Republican lawmakers at the state and federal level continue pushing to take away women's rights. And now, by taking away the ability of many families to pay for childcare, a local business run predominantly by women, the Republican Party has struck again. Democrats see women's rights and helping families as a breakthrough issue in 2024. These Democrats are correct both morally and politically. Helping families pay for childcare is good for the economy and strengthens family stability. And it also makes for good politics. Relatedly, when Republicans squawk about protecting children and then do not protect children once they are born, the GOP hypocrisy becomes even more noticeable. Through their government spending gamesmanship and disregard for programs that are helping people, the Republican Congress is putting livelihoods at risk. Threatening the well-being of families is eventually going to come back and haunt the GOP. Mark my words, childcare centers and family assistance may be disappearing, but the GOP brand, which is already tarnished, is going to disintegrate. It's only a matter of time. By the way, the Republican news organization known as Fox News Channel is making it clear what their priorities are these days through their White House correspondent, Peter Doocy.
Would President Biden ever try to get out of a meeting by pulling a fire alarm?
The reactions from real journalists in the White House briefing room are becoming noteworthy. Check out that story at the link below. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.